Welcome to this weekly review of all the forex pairs to see what we're up to for next week. So my name is Oscar Madsen. I'm a funded trader as well as a personal trading coach, and with these videos I'm trying to analyze the market to see what we can trade next week. So let's begin with DXY on the weekly time frame, and we can see that we are bullish, tapped in towards demand, took liquidity, so we could eventually start trading up higher in towards this high. Now this demand is now also in control because we broke the fractal low and then we broke the fractal high over here, causing this demand to be in control to push price back up higher. So that's definitely possible, but what we need to keep in mind is that there are still open demand zones open where we could see a swipe and then the actual move up higher. So that's just something to keep in mind. So when I then scale in to the daily time frame, I can also see that we are daily swing bearish, that this is your swing low, and that we already made a pullback to the premium prices. So that from here we could trade down lower in towards the swing low, and like I said, then get the actual move in towards the upside in line with the weekly time frame, for example. So what am I now looking at? Well, this supply is in control. Why is this in control? Well, because we had the fractal high and then the fractal low over here. So this was my supply in control. Yes, we broke the fractal in towards the upside, but this supply still remains in control for me, and this is just internal liquidity to fuel the next move down lower. So that's how I'm viewing this, and I still see this supply as in control, so I'm just looking for downside in the beginning of next week in towards these lows over here. Going over to the 4 hour, it is going to be exactly the same. You can see that we're also bearish. We took liquidity above these highs and then we started trading down lower. We now took some extra fuel above this liquidity high, and now we created this supply over here, and I'm looking for downside. Once we break that fractal low, I'm going to take short setups in towards this swing low. Going over to Euro USD, then I'm obviously looking at longs. But as you can see, the 4 hour swing is bearish. So am I going to take long setups? I'm not going to. So I will wait for later in the week. If, for example, we take liquidity at the lows on DXY, then we could see some upside. And once we see some upside on the DXY, or we could see some upside on the DXY, I'm looking for Euro USD shorts because, first of all, we are in weekly supply and we were 4 hour bearish. So I'm looking for shorts because we are in this weekly supply, and from here I'm looking to trade down lower, still in towards that 50% level from this swing up. And then also this internal liquidity. Scaling over to the daily time frame, I'm looking at the same point of interest to trade towards in the near future. And as you can see, this supply is in control at the moment, but we've also seen on the 4 hour time frame that there is a lot of liquidity still open above this high. So we could also see one more swipe of this high, then the fractal break, and then we could take short setups. So this is what I'm waiting for. A little bit more confirmation here because also the DXY need to get ready as well. So this is what I'm waiting on the DXY, or just one more fractal break, and then we have a double fractal break in towards the downside, and that's also clear for me to trade down lower. On the 4 hour time frame, this is the liquidity which I was referring to. All of these highs, we now took all of these highs, but there is still this and this open, so that's why I'm looking to take it out, then get your confirmation, and then you could take your short setups to the new swing low. But for now, the DXY is down for me, and this could cause Euro USD to trade up higher. GBP USD, looking at the weekly time frame, we can see that we were inside this point of interest, and now I could see some liquidity get taken out at the lows before moving up higher. So I'm also looking at shorts. Why? We came in towards this refined point of interest, and yes, we do have bullish order flow actually. So we could also just continue up higher in line with the order flow, with this demand now being in control, and could push price up higher. So I gotta see on the daily time frame if we could continue to trade up higher to take out liquidity above the highs, or if we're going to respect this supply zone and trade down lower a little bit before again moving up higher, for example. because if you look at the weekly structure, we should trade down lower in the near future because we also grabbed liquidity above this high and came in this supply zone. Going over to the daily here, we are also bullish on the daily time frame, so looking for longs is not bad from those discount prices, as well as this internal liquidity that we could take out and then move up higher. So at the moment I'm still looking for shorts. Why? Because we could trade towards the discount prices as well as a monthly open, plus take out the internal liquidity. So I'm looking for shorts here on GBP USD. Going over to the 4 hour, it is going to be the same discount prices. This is liquidity, as well as this was your daily liquidity, and the monthly level is also open. So what can we see now? Well, I do see previous weekly open is right at this open supply, and we also do have some liquidity above these highs as well. So what I hope to see is one more swipe, swiping those early sellers because they are selling after this fractal break and even this double fractal break. I want to trade towards this open supply with this liquidity, then get my fractal break. That's the point where I take short setups in towards that daily liquidity around that 50% level. So this is also what I'm up to for next week. Going over to AUD USD, looking on the weekly time frame first. What did we see? We broke the fractal high previous week, but we then got a huge reaction in towards the downside. Now we still have some weekly liquidity to take out above this high, so I'm still looking at longs, and this demand is also still in control. So next week I'm also still going to look for longs. Looking at the daily time frame, you can also see that this demand is also still in control. We had a sell-off, then a buy. That's why this is my demand, which I'm looking to buy from. So we can also see, I think, or no, not yet. So this low, which is our fractal low, got respected, which could mean that we could still trade up higher. But there's also probability, for example, that we could take liquidity under this low. This becomes your fractal high. We break the fractal high and then we trade up higher. So this is also possible. Gotta see what we're up to in the beginning of the week. If we start breaking up higher on the 4 hour time frame, we could take long setups. But if we sell down lower, take liquidity and then trade up higher, that's also a possibility. Because also the monthly level is over there, so I would be careful for this swipe one more time and then trade up higher. But overall, I'm still looking at upside. Looking at the 4 hour time frame, you can also see that we are 4 hour bullish. We already took a little bit of internal liquidity over here, and as we can see at the lows, yeah, we do have some 3 equal lows over here, which could be a little bit scary. But yeah, if we start to break the highs, what does this mean? This means that we failed to break the low. So even though we have a lot of equal lows, which you should be careful of course, because you also have the monthly level as well. If we start giving double breaks to the upside, this could mean that we rejected this low, that we don't want to break this, and that we need to take liquidity, for example, at the highs. So keep that in mind. Be patient here, because you can also see that we are consolidating, and in a consolidated phase you see a lot of fractal breaks happen, so you really want to see clear breaks in towards the upside before longing. Going over to NZD USD at the weekly time frame, you can see this supply is still open, and I'm definitely looking to trade towards that supply. We also have this weekly liquidity that is also still open, and this demand now is also in control. You can see previous week we broke the fractal high, created this demand zone, and then from that monthly level we got a little reaction. So I'm just expecting some continuation up higher. Continuing this rally base rally. So that's what I'm looking for. Going over to the daily time frame, you can see the rally base rally a bit more clear. Rally base, and I'm looking for the rally up higher in towards this liquidity and that weekly supply. So we all know this is our weekly demand being in control, and as you can see, that monthly level is acting as support, pushing price up higher, or resistance. I'm not a support or resistance guy, but I do know that this is support or resistance, and this could push price up higher. We can also see that this was a strong point in the past where we reacted from multiple times. Right here we traded up higher, up higher, up higher. Yes, we broke through it, but this was a point where we got an initial reaction to the downside. So this is definitely a strong level where we could trade higher from. Going over to the 4 hour, we are not yet 4 hour bullish because we didn't get a candle close above this high, but we took liquidity above the high. So this could mean that we see a liquidity grab, because if we take liquidity at the highs, we want to take liquidities at the low. So it's also possible to see this, but because we now broke the highs twice, we could say that there has been some liquidity made under this low. So if you then trade under this low, you could also say that you have liquidity, and then you could trade up higher again. So I would be careful here with trading NZD USD long setups unless we start to break the highs multiple times. Then you could take those long setups again in towards that liquidity, which you can see at this high. Why this high? This was your daily liquidity point as internal liquidity inside your weekly supply zone. So keep that in mind for taking long setups on NZD USD, that we didn't yet took liquidity at the downside after swiping liquidity at the upside here. Going over to Euro AUD on the weekly time frame, what can we see? Well, on the weekly time frame, we are inside this demand, and we also tapped the discount prices. So this could mean that we could trade up higher in towards the highs. Now, in my personal opinion, these are definitely early buyers. I want to see one more swipe, swiping them, maybe swiping even liquidity, maybe even tapping that yearly level and a demand zone before moving up higher in towards the highs again. This for me is just an early buyers, people thinking that we're just going to trade up higher from those discount prices. So we now also have that monthly level. So for me, that seems like a perfect level to push price down lower and swipe all of these buyers. Going over to the daily time frame, well, what do I see? We also retraced in towards this daily supply as well. So this looks perfect to trade down lower. Now you can also see that the daily fractal is bullish. This is your fractal low. So I would need to see that swiped before actually trading down lower. So before I want to trade in towards this liquidity first, and also this liquidity, I want to see the daily fractal turn bearish before actually taking short setups. You could already be aggressive and go over to the 4 hour to take short setups. Why? Well, because your higher time frame analysis that you could trade down lower in towards the lows, and you have a strong point, the monthly level, where we could start to retrace from. So you can also see that from that point we got the 4 hour fractal in towards the downside, creating this supply zone which could push price down lower. So if we see multiple breaks again in towards the downside, and you see order flow holding, supply zones being in control, you could already start to look for shorts before the daily fractal has turned bearish. But this is a higher risk trade. But if you see enough confirmation, enough breaks, that's already a valid setup in my opinion. Going over to GBP AUD, looking at the weekly time frame, this is going to be exactly the same. So we took liquidity above this high. So what am I looking at? To take a little bit of liquidity at the lows before moving up higher. The only thing here is that this demand, and you're going to see that on the daily time frame, has been pushing price up higher a lot. So we broke this high as well, which is I think your daily fractal, but at least your daily order flow. And now we could start to look for higher prices. So that's a possibility that could happen. Let's take a look at the daily. And what do we see? Yeah, so we broke that high. So this demand now is in control and could push price back up higher, right? From that monthly level, for example. Now, if you look purely based on liquidity, we still gotta take liquidity under all of these lows because that's still all weak. So if you start to see, for example, the daily fractal, or actually this is your fractal low and your fractal high, but if we look at the internal fractal, it should be this. And if we break this, we create supply. And if we then get another break, we create another supply. And then you could start to look for shorts, trading in towards all of these lows and that liquidity. So that's also what I'm looking for. Going over to the 4 hour, you can also see that, in my opinion, we could have taken liquidity above this high, and then for now this demand is still in control. But like I said, if we start to see those breaks in towards the downside, I'm 100% going to take short setups because the yearly level is here and a lot of liquidity, so we could definitely trade down lower if we start to trade down lower and break lows. If we just continue to trade up higher, take some liquidity, and then again break up higher, then we could start to look for long setups. But that's not for next week, or maybe later on in next week. Going over to Euro NZD, same story as Euro AUD, took liquidity above the high, and now, like I said, want to see liquidity at the lows get taken out. Also didn't yet tap discount prices on the daily swing structure, which I'm about to show you, and this monthly level is clearly acting as a support and resistance point to push price down lower in towards the liquidity low. Looking at the daily time frame as well, this is your daily swing, so these are your discount prices, and from this move up you still need to trade towards those discount prices, and this perfectly aligns with this liquidity that is also still open. So that's why I'm also looking at shorts on Euro NZD, and as you can see, the fractals are also bearish every single time. So let me show this in a second. This is your supply in control, but then I've also seen that we broke this fractal low once again. So this is now your supply being in control, and from here you could see lower prices. So we have this supply, and that's where you want to look for shorts on the lower time frame. Going over to the 4 hour, what do I see? Well, first of all, in this move in towards the upside, there was almost no liquidity, so at least want to take this liquidity under this low. So I definitely see some downside, but you can also see that we're kind of consolidating, and now we kind of rejected this low, so this could give signs that we're in a reversal, right? So if we start to break these highs, we could then look for longs actually, because that means that this overall weekly demand is enough to push price up higher, and that we don't need or do not need to take any liquidity under the lows before moving up higher. But if we start to break down lower and break the fractals in towards the downside, then I'm definitely looking to take short setups in towards that low, because then I know, okay, we have been respecting all of these supply zones and we could just continue down lower. Looking at GBP NZD on the weekly time frame, we already made connection though on the demand, and we took liquidity underneath this low, so that's also definitely a nice point to, of course, trade up higher. Because what can we see? Well, this is the weekly time frame. We do have some more liquidity above this high and eventually this high, but for now this is my first point to trade towards. You can see we have clear bullish order flow. Every single time that we have demand, we respect that and we trade up higher. So we came in towards this demand, and then of course I'm going to expect that we respect this demand and trade up higher in towards the highs. Going over to the daily time frame, we can see that we also have bullish order flow, or had bullish order flow as well. So this is my daily demand, and then you created a new daily demand over here and a new one right at this demand, but then you see that we start to break. Okay, so 1 second, like this, boom, like this is my order flow, and then we created even this demand, right? And then we even created this demand over here, but this now is something that we broke. So we broke the high, causing this demand to be in control, but then we broke the low, which could also be the same as we switch order flow. So now the order flow is bearish again, and we could see some downside, maybe take even liquidity at the lows before moving up higher. I'm not saying that this is not a possibility, but if we start to see a reaction from that monthly and yearly level, and we start to like change the order flow bullish again, creating demand zones, then we could start to look for those longs again. At the moment, the order flow is bearish, so yeah, you could look for some potential short setups. Not the best on the weekly and the daily time frame, but as you can see on the 4-hour time frame, this is definitely something nice. Why? Because you're 4-hour bearish, so that's why it's still possible for me to trade down lower, swipe this swing low, turn swing bearish one more time, and then start to reverse. So then this would all be early buyers on the weekly time frame. For example, you swipe all of these people and then you trade up higher. Because you're swing bearish on the 4-hour, that is still some possibility to do. Now I can see that we have all of these liquidity lows, we have the monthly level and the daily level. So I want to take short setups, but it's not going to be the case. Why? Well, let's take a look. Yeah, we took liquidity, but if you can see, this was your supply zone and this is still open. So that's my first thing. If I want to take short setups, I want to make sure that there is nothing that worries me, right? So I want to see all of the point of interest get taken before, because if I take a short setup over here, we could still see a swipe, possibly hitting my stop loss and then trading down lower. So I would wait for this, and then let's say this is your fractal low. I want to see this and then this and then this, right? Because you could also just fall down and then you don't have an entry, but over here you want to get entered, for example. So if I need, this is what I need to see perfectly, to perfection. If I don't see this to perfection, then I'm not going to take the short setup. So this also means that there is a low probability that this trade will play out. I will set my alert at this high and then also at the fractal low as well, to trade in towards this liquidity low as well as at monthly level. Yeah, but this is a tricky one, but you would want to see this point of interest get tapped, then a fractal to the downside, and then that's the possible short setup that I want to take. Am I going to take long setups? No, because the daily fractal and order flow is bearish, so if they flip bullish, then I might look for long setups. Going over to AUD NZD, so I called this to perfection. So I made a trade breakdown on this one a while ago. So this was my demand zone, liquidity, and I took the long setup in towards this open supply where we could then trade down lower from. Now overall, in my opinion, we could start to trade in towards these liquidity highs in the near future. So that's definitely a point to like keep in mind to trade maybe later on. Now we could still swipe, for example, these lows on the weekly, swiping early buyers before moving up higher. So we got to keep that in mind, because this supply could push price all the way down lower. Now at the moment though, we do have a demand zone over here which is in control, and we took some liquidity at these lows as well. So I think that we didn't yet tap this demand exactly, so I'm still waiting for one more swipe, tap the demand zone, and then I want to see those breaks so that I can take those long setups. So looking at the 4-hour, I'm also going to draw that daily demand down so that I know this whilst I'm on the 4-hour chart. At the moment, you can also see that the order flow was beautifully bearish and that these supplies were in control every single time. So I wanted to take short setups over here, but I didn't do that because I just was not paying attention enough. So that's just unfortunate. But at the moment, this supply is in control. This monthly level could also push price a little bit down lower. Then once we switch that order flow after we tap that daily demand, this is the point where I continue my long setups to take out all of these highs, eventually also trade to the daily level, and then after all of that, trade towards that higher time frame liquidity, which was above these highs. So that's my view on AUD NZD. Let's now take a look at the USD Swiss. So first of all, let's see, right? Let's remove these things. Let's take a look. So the DXY for me is bearish. So this could mean that USD Swiss could trade a little bit down lower. So yeah, we have seen early buyers, then we swiped those, and then we saw the real move in towards the upside. Now, like often after you see a double fractal break, you see internal liquidity get grabbed before you continue up higher. So that's definitely something that I'm looking for or keeping in mind, because yes, this amount is in control, but I've backtested that most of the time you see the double fractal break, internal liquidity grab, and then you move up higher. So that's something that I'm looking for here. On the daily time frame as well, I can see that this amount is still open, and then yes, this amount is in control, but like I said, we could take liquidity underneath this low, then tap in towards this refined amount, and then after you see that fractal switch, we could take long setups again in towards those highs as well as those premium prices. So that's what I'm waiting for on USD Swiss. If we start to break this high again, which is on the 4 hour, then I would like to go long already before taking liquidity, because you then rejected the low not once but twice, and that means that you could trade up higher. Looking at the 4 hour, so I'm also going to show that this was your refined amount on the daily time frame, but if you start to break this fractal high again, then I'm going to take those long setups. So that's also what I'm waiting for. At the moment we have supply as well as demand being in control, so you gotta wait and do not trade this thing. This demand could push price up higher, this supply could take liquidity at the lows before moving up higher. So keep in mind and be careful of your stop loss. Going over to Euro Swiss, looking at the weekly, we took liquidity at the lows, got a reaction from that, and then moved down lower. I still see a lot of liquidity above the highs, so I want to trade up higher. Now this little wick over here is internal liquidity, which is more clear on the daily time frame. That's why I know we took liquidity at the lows, and then I was expecting for this internal liquidity to get taken out. So I'm still looking for that liquidity to get taken out before looking at further shorts. Because yes, this supply is in control, but for me liquidity is one of the most important things, so I want to see this liquidity get taken out before looking at shorts. As you can see, this is your daily liquidity or internal liquidity, and we are bearish over here, but as you can see, this is your order flow, supply, 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 supply. This supply still needs to make connection before moving down lower with the order flow. So that's why I'm still looking at an upside on Euro Swiss. I can also see that we swipe the lows over here, and this could perfectly be like more buyers stepping into the market. If you were an institutional buyer, you would have stepped in over here, swiping liquidity, and where would you now step in? Also over here, swiping liquidity. So this is, for me, a point to possibly retrace, take out liquidity of the highs and this internal liquidity. And then if you can see, this is a high we broke. This demand is just in control, and I'm just looking for upside. On the 4 hour time frame as well, you can see it's more clear. A more refined supply zone still open, as well as internal liquidity, and then as you can see, a beautiful swipe of the lows, breaking the high, and then this is your demand in control. So as you can see, we broke the lows multiple times, but once we start to break those fractal highs, longs are very nice to take out all of this liquidity. So that's my lookout on Euro Swiss. Going over to GBP Swiss, I'm looking for one more swipe of the liquidity before moving up higher on the 4 hour, but this is my higher time frame. Took weekly liquidity, well, I want to go up and take liquidity above the highs, right? So yes, we are in supply, and this caused a reaction down lower, but from that monthly level, I'm looking to trade up higher again, trading towards this open supply. Okay. Looking at the daily time frame, this is also my daily swing. So taking those long setups is actually against the daily. But do you see any liquidity in this move down? No. So you could say this liquidity, but that was after we took this liquidity. So we took liquidity, and only then we got the reaction up higher, and then we trade down lower. So yes, then you created liquidity, but at the moment that you swiped the low and took liquidity, what was the first liquidity point that you could take out? This liquidity. So that's why I'm just looking to continue with the order flow to trade up higher in towards this high, and first of all this yearly level, because that's also a point where you could see a reaction from before moving up higher. Going over to the 4-hour, you can clearly see that we're bullish, and yes, this is your swing low over here, but you see we have trend line liquidity and the monthly level, which is a magical level found by Rutger, so shout out to him. But if we see like this swipe, for example, because this is your demand, then you have early buyers here. But if you see those early buyers get swiped and then you see your confirmation, this is a beautiful setup again to trade to that yearly level and that higher liquidity. So that's what I'm looking for here on GBP Swiss for next week. Going to AUD Swiss on the weekly time frame, you can see yes, we are bearish, but like I said, after swiping liquidity underneath the lows, same on GBP Swiss, I want to trade up higher and take liquidity above the highs. Looking at the daily time frame, what can you see? Swiping liquidity at the lows, and this is your monthly level, so from here you could trade up higher. So that's my view here on AUD Swiss, and then also this supply here as well as the daily level and those liquidity highs. So definitely a huge point to trade towards. And again, if I was an institutional buyer, I would step in again after swiping liquidity, and that would be over here. So what is your daily fractal? That's going to be this, or actually, yeah, this is your fractal low and this is your fractal high. But if you look at the internal fractal structure, why do I sometimes look at the internal fractal structure? Well, because fractals sometimes are so far away. This is just tremendously far away. So then I look at the internal fractal. That's going to be this high. Then I wait for that high and then I trade up higher. Looking at the 4-hour over here, what can I see? So we still just took liquidity underneath this low and we didn't have a break of structure, which could mean that this turned swing bearish. But at the moment we're still swing bullish. Just grab liquidity underneath the low, tap the monthly level. So what I'm now going to do is wait for that order flow to switch bullish, which we already did. But then of course I want to see more confirmation just to make sure that we are not early buyers, right? So this demand is now in control and could push price up higher. So you could take a long setup like this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait and I'm going to look for either one more swipe of the low, because this could be early buyers, then a swipe, and then you could trade up higher, or we start to break up higher multiple times, creating demand zones where we could then trade up higher from. So that's the thing here on AUD Swiss. But be patient, wait for enough confirmation, don't be too fast. You will have enough time to take possible long setups in towards that yearly level and that liquidity. So yeah, AUD Swiss looking nice for longs next week. Looking over here at NZD Swiss, what can I see? Okay, so we have these premium prices over here where we could trade down lower from. Didn't yet tap that, but came around that zone. So this could mean that we already trade down lower. Now this supply is also possibly going to push price down lower, but exactly the same as AUD Swiss and GBP Swiss, we took liquidity underneath this low, and that means that we could take internal liquidity or liquidity at the highs before moving down lower. So still looking at upside, because as you can see, once we took liquidity underneath this low, I'm still looking to take liquidity at this high before moving down lower. So that's why I'm still looking at upside on NZD Swiss. So you can also see that we're clearly respecting the lows and just breaking the highs again and again, right? On the 4-hour, that's also clear, because you can see that we're 4-hour bullish, and then this is your swing low over here. So as you can see, we took liquidity, moved up higher, left some liquidity behind, took that liquidity, and now I want to see either a swipe, this then becomes my fractal high, and then this. So if I see this, I'm definitely going to take long setups on NZD Swiss, of course, if fundamentals are in line. But yeah, if we do not see this and we just trade up higher, then after this fractal break, we could also look for longs. So NZD Swiss and AUD Swiss both looking nice to trade up higher in towards that higher liquidity. CAD Swiss is also looking for longs, super clean for longs. So we have supply, that's true, but 50% level is still far away, so we could still trade up higher towards that 50% level. Going over to the daily time frame, you can also see, well, we had a demand zone and then we just consolidated a little bit, moved up higher, swiped the lows. So again, if you are an institutional buyer, where are you stepping into the market? Swipe, you step in over here. Swipe, you step in over here. And this is so clear for me that we're just going to trade up higher. What do you see again? Swipe of liquidity, boom, I'm looking for upside. So that's the thing here, what I'm looking for. Now, of course, the daily fractal is still bearish, but once we break the daily fractal, these are A+ setups. Now, in my opinion, it's just so clear that we are going to trade up higher because of the weekly and because we take liquidity, and that I'm already going to look for longs if I see the 4-hour fractal break. But what do I now see? The 4-hour fractal is going to be the same as the daily fractal. So what I'm looking for is for this daily and 4-hour fractal to break, a retracement in towards that monthly level, and I'm probably going to enter something like this, entry on the monthly level, stop loss underneath the low, and then we could trade towards what? Towards this internal liquidity. Like you've seen, swipe the lows, swipe liquidity at the lows. So I'm looking to take liquidity at the highs, and we have some trend line liquidity over here. So that's going to be my target here. So yeah, if we see that, then I think CAD Swiss is one of my A+ setups here. Definitely going to look for that. So USD CAD, I made an trade breakdown yesterday. So it's obviously a bit tricky to hold over the weekend. We could see big gap with the dollar because of the court news and everything, but that's just something that I'm willing to risk. So this supply is open or in control and could push price down lower, like I said, in towards this demand. This monthly level also acting as support and resistance to push price down lower. Looking at the demand or daily time frame, we have a supply zone just going to be the same as the weekly, and then what do you see from this move down lower? This is going to be your premium prices, perfect tap, and then we trade it down lower in towards the lows. So if we reject this low and if we do not break the low, if we don't do this and we start to trade up higher, it is likely to take liquidity above the highs before then moving down lower, because after swiping liquidity underneath the low, we didn't yet grab liquidity above the high. Okay, looking at the 4-hour time frame, what do I see? Well, at the moment, 4-hour order flow is still in control, so you could still look for those short setups over here to take shorts, right? But if we start to break the highs, and then if you take liquidity above this high, you would want to only then take shorts once the order flow is bearish. So that's my advice here. Be patient, don't be too aggressive here, but we could also start to just sell off as well. And from this demand, this is a good point to look for longs in line with the weekly structure, which is bullish, as well as the daily structure, which is also bullish. And then we can take long setups in towards this supply zone, right? And all of these highs. So this is the best setup over here for next week. Long setups from this demand, in my personal opinion. Now, before possibly taking long setups, the DXY must be bullish, because otherwise you're trading counter your dollar bias, and that's just not the best way to take your A+ setups. EuroCAD, I don't know actually what it's going to do. I'm still waiting, because we do have some more liquidity, right, at the highs, which we could take out before moving down lower. But we've seen multiple fractal breaks, but then also multiple fractal breaks in towards the downside. So yes, the fractal is now bullish, and yes, this demand is then in control, which could then lead to buys, right? So that's definitely possible. And then you could also say that this is your demand which created that fractal break in towards the upside and could push price up higher. So that's definitely possible. Gotta keep that in mind. Looking at the daily time frame, you can also see that now the daily order flow is also still bullish, and that could mean that we also just continue to trade up higher. So this demand is in control. Would definitely advise to look for longs on the 4 hour. So looking at the 4 hour, also 4 hour bullish, then took a little bit of liquidity at the lows, one more swipe, and then we started to break the highs. So as you saw on the daily, this demand is in control, and we gotta look for another fractal break before looking up higher. Why? Because this is your fractal low, this is your fractal high. This, yeah, there's a reason you want to see another fractal break. And also there's no liquidity in this move up, so we could also see one more swipe and then start to look for longs. If we see that we start to break like the lows multiple times, then you could look for those possible short setups, because we still have trendline liquidity, and this open demand zone. So that's like an advice that I can give. Be patient again on Euro CAD. Wait for a clear direction that you really know or sure it's going to go, and don't be like a FOMO trader. Don't be scared that you miss the trade in like a long setup, because if it is valid, you will see that it's actually valid if we start breaking highs, for example, multiple times. At the moment, it's just too tricky to take long setups, because first of all, yes, this amount is in control, but no liquidity in this move up. So I would wait for one more swipe, then longs. And if we don't see that and we start to trade down lower, wait for enough confirmation to validate that it's not an early buyer swipe, and then trade down lower. So that's my advice here on Euro CAD, and also my bias. Going over to GBP CAD, I'm looking for downside and I missed those shorts. So why was I looking for shorts? Well, first of all, my fundamentals were a little bit bearish here, but on the weekly time frame you can clearly see we took liquidity, which could mean that we take liquidity at the lows. So that's just that. Now, of course, we could see that these are our early sellers, swipe those and then moving down lower. That's also still what I'm looking for. But on a daily time frame, it's more clear. We have this daily demand that is still open, and I saw that we grab liquidity above this high. So yes, looking at structure and PVD, we got a bullish structure, a pullback, and we could continue the bullish structure up higher. But I was still looking at shorts in towards this low, because first of all, that's extra liquidity, but also this demand which is still open. And if the fundamentals were temporarily bearish in line with the demand zone that's open, I want to take short setups in towards that point before moving up higher. So that's what I was waiting for. Damn. But okay, yeah, looking at the liquidity, again, beautiful trend line liquidity. So what I was seeing, well, I was seeing that we were starting to break down lower. So I wanted to take these short setups, which I didn't take, unfortunate. But yeah, these were some possible setup that you could have taken, because in my opinion, yes, the GBP is strong. So that's one of the reasons that I didn't took this, and also because it's technically not A plus, more fundamental trade with an open demand. But CAD for me is also bullish, and that's also why we saw this dump as well on GBP CAD. But that's just my view here on GBP CAD. One more swipe, and I wouldn't advise to take those short setups because it's counter the technicals. But what I would advise is after we take liquidity and after we tap this demand, longs here are A plus. So I'm also going to actually set my alert at this liquidity, and then from there I will start to look for long setups, and I'm going to take those 100% if they provide me a setup. NZD CAD, so a bit tricky. Like, of course, overall I think we could start to move up higher, take liquidity above this high. So that's, we took liquidity at the lows, so I'm looking for upside to take liquidity at the highs. That's basically that. On the daily time frame, you can also see that we first of all swipe liquidity, so we want to take liquidity at the highs, but after moving up higher, we kind of consolidative or are consolidative. We take liquidity at the lows, see one more move up higher, take liquidity at the lows, one more move up higher. So yes, we are consolidating, so we could see just swipe and then boom, and that's a very high possibility, but we could also just continue up higher. So in the long run, I'm looking for higher prices. Looking at the 4 hour, I can also see that the 4 hour is order flow bullish as well, but still though, we are inside consolidation prices, and actually order flow is not bullish. Why not? Because you had then this demand, and then you had this demand in control, and then you even had this demand in control. Sorry, I'm just doing this fast just to show you, but then as you can see, we broke this low, so we actually are now order flow bearish, which is not good if you want to take those long setups. But if we start to break the highs again, order flow bullish, you could look for longs again in towards those highs, but gotta keep in mind the consolidation phase. You sometimes see a swipe of the lows, manipulation, right, and then distribution. So that's definitely possible. I'm going to wait for this. Why? First of all, rally, base, rally, so we could already start to trade up higher, but I'm not going to FOMO trade. If we start to break up higher, then I could already take longs, but at the moment longs are not great because I could see one more swipe, consolidation, manipulation, distribution, and this is still possible for that rally, base, rally. So all setups are still open for me, but I'm overall looking for longs here on NZD CAD. Also, if I look at the PVD prices, you can also see that these are still open, so we could still see big retracement and then moving up higher. But overall, I just want to see all of these highs get taken out, and if we see that we swipe liquidity, turn for our bullish again on the order flow, that's just enough for me to already start moving up higher. On AUD CAD, on the weekly time frame, you can see a clear push from this supply zone. So surprisingly, because I was looking for upside here on AUD CAD as well, but now the order flow is clearly bearish, so longs are not the best here, but we do take some liquidity at the lows. So then I wanted to take internal liquidity at the highs, which is going to be this high over here, which we barely didn't we didn't take this liquidity, right? So we barely took it, but we didn't take it. So where are we possibly going to trade up higher from to take that liquidity before moving down lower? Well, this monthly level. Looking at the daily, you can clearly see equal highs over here. So yes, we do have supply in control every single time, but once we start to break the supply zones and we start to flip bullish on the order flow side, then longs, in my opinion, are nice towards this internal liquidity, and then also this refined supply zone. So that's definitely the point I want to trade towards, but we gotta see that order flow switch, which is currently the fractal high, and this monthly level is a perfect point to start to fridge bullish. So that's what I'm looking for. Am I going to look for longs on a 4 hour? No, I will wait for my daily because I want enough confirmation, because it's counter the weekly order flow. Okay. Looking at the yen basket on the weekly time frame, you can see this demand is still in control, as well as the order flow, which is just bullish, and we could continue up higher. That's also what I'm looking for. On the daily time frame, same structure. Yes, we do have a demand zone open, but that's maybe for later. First, I want to look for upside, then downside on the yen basket. Swiping liquidity above these highs, right? And then I could look for shorts. At the moment, this is also your demand in control because you swipe this high, and as we know, once a demand is in control, you could start to push price up higher. Took some internal liquidity at the lows, so looking fine to trade up higher. Looking at the 4 hour time frame, this is your 4 hour structure, bullish order flow as well. We just took internal liquidity, tapped this demand zone, and as you can see, this is just looking super clean for me to take those long setups. So if we start to see like maybe one more swipe, but if we start to see the fractals turn bullish, long setups here on yen basket are really clean. Also because we do have some liquidity above the highs, which we could take out in the future. That means shorts on euro yen and not going to look for anything else. So we took liquidity at the lows over here, which could fuel the next move up higher, but that's not what I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for shorts here because the yen basket, in my opinion, is bullish. And if the yen basket is bullish, euro yen and all the other yen pairs should trade down lower. So what do I see? We took liquidity above this high, which could fuel the next move down lower. Let's see at the daily what we could say more. So we also have this supply again after swiping liquidity, swiping the low, but actually creating this supply zone, which could then fuel the next move down lower again, taking liquidity, for example, underneath these lows. So that's actually what I'm looking at, and that's actually looking super clean. So I'm also going to show that here on the chart so that I notice that we have liquidity underneath these lows to take out in the near future. Also going to show that on this 4-hour time frame so that I really remember this whilst trading. So the only thing is that we're 4-hour bullish, which is not nice to have, but in my opinion the euro is weak definitely this month because lower rates are expected or higher rates. Yeah, I think I should check it one more time. But I'm just bearish on the euro. So we can see this supply is in control, and then also this supply is in control. So the order flow is bearish on the 4-hour. So if your fundamentals are in line, I gotta check it again. But I think I'm bearish on the euro because of interest rates decisions. I don't know if it is correct or not, but I'm going to check that again. But if I'm bearish on the euro, then I'm looking for those euro yen shorts, because again, why do we have structure? To see what we're up to in the long run, right? If we're going to trade up higher in the long run. But if the fundamentals say that we're going to trade down lower, then I don't really look a lot on the market structure, because we then could already trade down lower based on the longer run, which is fundamentals. So for me, the structure and fundamentals I combine, and for me they are the same, but fundamentals for me are just a little bit higher probability, right? That's just more based on actual stuff than just some market structure. But for now, the supply is in control and we could trade down lower. So I would want to see one more swipe to take short setups, because we could see like this, and then you could start to move up higher because of the yearly level. So I'm going to take a look at how we react and everything. But if we, for example, see this, boom, fractal low, then we create new supply, and in this supply, if we then get another fractal break just to confirm that this yearly level is not going to push me all the way up higher, then I'm going to take those short setups in towards these liquidity points. Looking at GJ, I'm obviously also looking at shorts. We took liquidity above this high, so looking good to short towards that monthly level I now see. So I can see that we have an open supply, we have a yearly level, we have bullish order flow. So am I going to take shorts? No, I'm not going to. Why not? Because the order flow is in control and could push me up higher in towards that higher time frame supply, as well as at the yearly level, and then trading down lower. Yeah, we did respect this high and we didn't break it, which could mean we trade down lower, but I want to see more confirmation if we're actually going to trade down lower before taking short setups. Looking at the 4-hour, I'm also just worried that we're going to see one more swipe before trading down lower, so I'm just going to keep that in mind whilst trading. At the moment, a lot of liquidity at the lows, so enough time, right? If we start to break this low, then I'm going to take short setups. But if we do not, and we're just going to continue up higher, then I'm going to take aggressive shorts from this point. But either I'm going to take shorts from here or after swiping this low from here. So that's what I'm waiting on GBP Yen. At the moment, not the best pair in my opinion, and it could go either way. Looking at USD Yen, like I said, I'm bearish on the dollar and I'm strong on the yen. So this could mean dollar yen shorts, obviously. So looking at dollar yen shorts, we do have some more liquidity that we could take out before actually moving up higher in line with the trend, which is definitely possible because as you can see, this supply is in control. So wouldn't be surprised to see higher prices. Now, if I take a look on the daily time frame, we had the daily swing, we traded down lower, we got a pullback, took liquidity above this high, and kind of neared this 50% level. So it could also be that already be that we trade down lower. After this fractal, we created this supply. I refined it to this supply, but from this supply, you could trade down lower. Also took internal liquidity above this high, right? So yeah, I'm looking for shorts here on USD Yen 100% of the times. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just careful of this open supply. But if we just are going to break structure on a 4 hour, I'm definitely looking at downside. So looking at the 4 hour, what is my swing? My swing is still bullish because, my swing is actually bearish. So I didn't notice, but my swing is bearish from the high until the low. We tapped premium prices, right? Premium prices. We took liquidity above this high. Okay, this is actually looking super clean for shorts. And then we have this supply zone also being in control. And this combined with my funnels in line could just mean that I'm going to take this as a short setup. But I'm not going to do this, I think. I'm going to review this. But I do have my exams, so I do not have a lot of time on the charts. But basically, this is your supply in control. I would wait for like confirmation, maybe on a 1 hour, but just one more confirmation in order to take your short setup, because then you can refine your entry to something like this. And then as you can see, your TP is a little bit higher, which is higher, like likely of achieving your take profit. So that's what I'm waiting on. And it actually looks super nice. So yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. I'm going to look at the 1 hour. You could also say, okay, this is going to be my internal liquidity. I will show it visible on the 4 hour. And then what do? Well, you place your entry on top of that liquidity, stop loss over here, and that way you also refined your take profit. So instead of your take profit being all the way at this low, it's now at the weekly open or previous weekly open, which is also perfectly fine. Now, if you want to refine it even more on top of this supply, for example, because that's in line with that monthly level, then you could also do this. And this is also very possible, but again, little lower chance that you get entered in a trade. So you could also wait for 1 hour confirmation here. But the USD Yen short definitely on my radar, and I hope I can make a trade breakdown on the USD Yen short here for next week. Looking at AUD Yen on a weekly time frame, what do we see? Liquidity at the lows get swiped, and then we could start to see some liquidity at the lows get taken out, as at the highs get taken out as well. So still looking at upside, multi-level here, boom, could push price up higher. Let's go back. Okay, so looking at the daily time frame, what do we see? This supply being in control, and we took some internal liquidity though, so we could see some downside here on AUD Yen. So am I going to look for longs? No, I'm not going to. I want to see the order flow switch, which could mean one more swipe, and then this could be your early swipers. You swipe those, then you swipe the order flow, and that's my point to take the long setups, to take out all of the liquidity. So as you can see, this is not going to be for next week, but maybe the week after that, because this is a daily time frame. So at the moment, am I going to take my short setups? No, I'm not going to, because we have liquidity above the highs. So I'm not going to look at AUD Yen next week. Also, we do have a supply zone over here, so not looking the best for me. I'm going to stay away from AUD Yen. Looking at NZD Yen over here, a weekly time frame, broke the low. We took liquidity at the lows, so we could take liquidity at the highs before then moving down lower to take all of the liquidity and tap this open demand. That's what I'm looking for. We took liquidity at the highs though, could start to move down lower. Gotta see on the lower time frame what we're going to do. So we still have some more liquidity open, and I can see that this is my order flow and that we now have bullish order flow. So on NZD Yen, we could already move up higher. So that's also what I'm going to wait for. And then what do I see? Well, I do see this liquidity over here as well as this one. So that's a little bit of trend line liquidity in line with this supply as well. So going over to the 4-hour, I could start to look for longs, and actually this looks pretty good. So we can see this is my swing high. We didn't tap the discount prices, which is totally okay, which is over here. Why is it okay? Because we do have bullish order flow, right? And we could start to move up higher, like we know. So then we can see this is in control every single time. So then we broke this low, right? So this is now your demand, and basically the order flow is bearish because this is your supply being in control because you swipe this low. But right, what am I going to do? I'm going to indicate this as internal liquidity like this, and then I want to flip the order flow bullish again, which is going to be, yeah, this is a fractal high. So I want the fractal high to break in order to go long, but what I'm actually hoping for is the fractal low to break, weekly open or previous weekly tap, which is still a point, and I can also see that this is refined and still open. So I'm definitely going to look for this, because here a refined demand zone and then your previous weekly open, which could still act as a little zone to push up higher from. So then this is your early buyers. We swipe those, we break the fractal high. This is my long setup. This is what I'm waiting for on AUD Yen, and this is absolutely beautiful. But the only thing is the yen basket should trade up higher, which could mean that this pair should trade down lower. So that's the only con of this trade, and that's why I'm not going to take it, because we do have some liquidity and we could see this tapping discount prices in line with the yen basket that should trade up higher. If my yen basket buys switches, then I'm going to look for longs here on NZD Yen. Looking at Swiss yen, I'm just continuing or expecting to continue up higher, like I said, at these lows, just trying to continue up higher in towards the supply and the liquidity highs. Daily time frame as well. Yes, we do have a support and resistance level over here, which you can see is struggling at the moment, but this yearly level and monthly level was pushing price up higher, and now I'm definitely looking at longs here on Swiss yen. But this again is not in line with my bias on Swiss yen, so that's on the yen basket. So that's why I'm not going to take those long setups here again. Also not on the 4-hour, because we also do have a lot of liquidity at these lows, which could mean that we take out that liquidity first and then we start to actually move up higher. So I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to take long setups here on Swiss yen, even though this could be very possible, but I'm just not going to do this, and I'm going to wait this one out. CAD Yen, so I was looking for a stronger CAD, so this could mean that we trade down lower. This demand zone over here is my monthly demand, and we never tapped that before. Let me show that. Your monthly demand still open. So could mean that we first see a swipe and then moving up higher, and definitely possible. The supply is also in control as well. Looking at the daily time frame, we swiped the liquidity low one time, then another time, then moved up higher, took liquidity above the highs, then took liquidity at the lows. I don't know what is happening over here. We do have an open supply where we could trade to before moving down lower. But what am I keeping in mind? Well, we swapped a lot of liquidity, so we could trade up higher, but we still have that monthly demand to trade towards before moving up higher. So the only A plus setup that I see here is making sure that we tap that monthly demand, because then you can actually take those A plus longs. Taking long setups at the moment because you swap liquidity is not the best for me, which is still possible, but just not the best for me. And taking short setups from the supply after this liquidity is fine, in line with the yen basket that should trade up higher, but it's not the best thing for me because you swipe multiple like lows, or actually major lows, so you could expect to take some liquidity or more liquidity at the highs. But if this supply, is in control, if we see on the 4-hour time frame that we break the lows, then I might look for shorts already here on CAD Yen. So we didn't get a candle close under the swing low, still swing bullish, but like I said, if we start to break the lows, then I could be looking for shorts here on CAD Yen, trading in towards that monthly level over here. From there, I'm going to look for longs. Going over to my last pair, Euro GBP. As you can see, this demand has been pushing price back up higher and probably in towards that previous monthly level, because tomorrow it is not anymore the month, or actually today, yeah, it's not anymore the monthly level. But if we tap in towards that, then we could trade down lower. Looking at the daily time frame, yes, we are bullish, but like we've seen, or like I explained in my other weekly outlooks, this beautiful move up higher, no liquidity, so you take that move out in its whole later on. Look at this manipulation move, swiping all of this liquidity, and then where do you enter as an institution? At this high, and then also after swiping this liquidity, connecting this supply, this is also the perfect point as an institution to step in to take your shorts more in towards the lows. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to short once we swipe this high. So looking at the 4-hour, this supply over here, I don't care about my structure because my higher time frame says that we could trade down lower in line with the liquidity plays. So I now see this wedge. If we take that liquidity, right, then I'm looking for that order flow switch again. Once we get that, that's when I take those short setups all the way in towards, first of all, that yearly level, so like trading towards that liquidity. But then I still think that we could trade all the way down lower. Why? Consolidation, manipulation, distribution. So that's what I'm looking for here on Euro GBP, and I hope I have my alert ready. I do not, so I'm going to set my alert at this high, because from that point I'm going to take my short setups. So that was it for today, guys. I hope you liked it, and if you guys have any questions, make sure to comment it down below. See you guys in the next one. Ciao.